The sky was on fire. Viraya's escape pod spun wildly, smoke rising from the control panels. Sparks flew as the small pod dropped from space, heading straight for the surface of a frozen, abandoned planet. Her body was thrown hard against the wall. Blood trickled down the side of her head. Alarms screamed in every direction. She didn't even remember pressing the emergency ejection. One moment she was on the royal vessel, dressed in the blue robes of her noble house. The next, the ship was under attack. Pirate raiders, unknown species, fast and brutal. Her guards had fallen in seconds. She barely escaped. Her fingers still shook from fear and cold. Now she was falling, alone, and no one knew where she was. With a loud crash, the pod slammed into a jagged mountain slope. The impact tore off a side panel. Ice and dust blasted in through the opening. Metal bent. Glass shattered. Her scream was lost in the sound of the collision. The whole pod skidded for hundreds of meters, rolling, bouncing, then finally stopped half buried. In the snow, silence followed. Viraya didn't move at first. Her body hurt everywhere. One leg was twisted under the seat. Her breathing was shaky. Cold air stung her skin. She opened one eye and saw flashing red lights. The escape pod was dying. Its systems were broken. Oxygen was leaking. Heat was dropping fast. She should have been dead. But she was in single quotes T. Slowly, painfully. She reached for the side panel and pressed the distress button. A small red light blinked. Her signal was weak. Barely enough power left. Maybe a passing ship would hear it. Maybe someone would help. Maybe. She tried to stand, but collapsed back into the seat. Her strength was gone. She pulled a thin emergency blanket over her shoulders. It didn't help much. Her alien body wasn't made for this kind of cold. Her long fingers were already going numb. Her lips were blue. Outside the cracked window, the landscape looked empty. White mountains, frozen rocks, and nothing else. She was completely alone. Hours passed. She drifted in and out of sleep. Night came quickly on this dead world. Stars sparkled. In the sky, her eyes kept looking at the signal light. Still blinking, still alive, but fading. Just like her, she thought about her people. Would they search for her? Probably not. She was the youngest daughter. Not important, a symbol. Not a warrior. To them, she was weak, useless. If she died here, the galaxy would not care. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the emergency ration, a small metal pack of nutrient paste. It tasted like cold sand, but she forced herself to eat. She had to stay alive. For what? She didn't know. Suddenly, the console made a soft sound, a ping. Her tired eyes opened wide. The signal had changed. She crawled forward, using her elbows. Her legs still wouldn't move. She pressed the screen with frozen hands. A ship, somewhere far away. Not close enough to see. Not close enough to trust. But it was something. Her heart pounded. She turned on the weak beacon again and added a short message in multiple galactic languages. Life form detected. Injured. Requesting aid. Then she waited. Seconds passed. Minutes. Nothing. The ship might ignore her. Might be another pirate. Might not even be real. Her head dropped against the screen. Tears burned in her eyes, but they froze before they could fall still. She didn't turn off the signal. Somewhere deep inside, hope was still alive. As she lay in the dark pod, surrounded by smoke and ice, she whispered to herself over and over like a prayer from childhood. Someone will come. Someone will come. But she didn't know. Far above her, in the cold vacuum of space, a human ship had already picked up her signal, and the man on board wasn't like anyone she had ever known. Not yet. But very soon, their lives would change forever, and the galaxy would remember what happens when a human answers a call that no one else dared. The red light blinked slower now, almost dying. Viraya watched it through half-closed eyes. Her fingers no longer felt like part of her body. The cold was deeper now, wrapping around her bones. She had given up shouting. She had stopped crying. Her breath came in small clouds of white mist. Her last message still hung on the screen, simple words that no one had answered. But then, just as her eyes began to shut for what she thought would be the last time, something changed. A second sound. Not the console. Not her heartbeat. It was Distant, low, rumbling. She blinked, confused. The ice around the pod began to tremble. Snow on the broken panel above her head drifted down. Virea's heart, frozen and slow, suddenly kicked. Was it an earthquake? No, it was too regular. Something heavy was landing. A ship. She forced herself up, crawling, groaning with each movement. Her broken leg dragged uselessly behind her. She reached the cracked window and wiped the fog with a shaking hand. She saw fire in the sky, not flames. Thrusters. A ship was descending. Virea couldn't see the markings, couldn't tell the design, but the shape wasn't like anything from her own people. It was blocky, dark, aggressive. The sound grew louder. It was real. It was here. The ship hovered above her escape pod, then slowly touched down on the icy ground. She stared, frozen in disbelief. The hatch of the strange ship opened with a hiss. Steam poured out, blinding her view for a moment. Then a figure stepped out. Tall. Covered in full black armor. Broad-shouldered. Human. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She had never seen a human in real life, only heard whispers, rumors. Some said they were warriors from a death world. Some said they were demons in skin. Others believed they were extinct. But one had just landed in front of her, walking through the snow like the cold meant nothing. He moved fast and without hesitation. His helmet turned toward the pod. She didn't know if he could see her, but he raised a scanning device. A soft blue light swept across her body. She tried to speak, but her voice was too dry. He came closer, pulled the broken hatch open with one hand, and looked inside. Her heart pounded. He could kill her. He could leave. He could be here for salvage, not rescue. But he didn't speak. He reached out gently and lifted her into his arms. The warmth of his body shocked her. He wasn't cold. His armor hummed with heat. She gasped as the sudden warmth touched her skin. She couldn't stop herself. She passed out. When she opened her eyes again, everything was different. She lay on a soft bed. The room was dim, lit with red and blue lights. The ceiling curved above her, smooth and metal. She wasn't in her pod anymore. The human ship. Her body was covered in a blanket. Real warmth surrounded her now. A quiet hum vibrated through the walls. The air smelled clean. Sharp. Her leg was wrapped. Her wounds were covered. Someone had cared for her. She turned her head. He was sitting across the room, helmet off, head down, typing into a device. He looked different than she imagined. Tired, rugged. His eyes were sharp, scanning, not cruel, not soft either. He noticed her staring. He didn't smile. Drink, he said simply, handing her a warm metal flask. His voice was deep, smooth, and strangely calm. She sipped. Warm liquid spread through her chest. She let out a shaky breath. "You're human," she said, her voice dry. He nodded. She wanted to ask 100 questions: why he came, why he helped, what he would do with her, but none of them came out. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you." He didn't answer. He just stood up, checked the screen on the wall, and walked out of the room. The door slid shut behind him. She sat in silence, gripping the flask, her mind spinning. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask what species she belonged to. He didn't even ask her name. Who was he? Why had he helped? And what would he do next? Virea looked around the room. It was clean, but not perfect, worn, lived in. This wasn't a military ship. It was something older, personal. She saw a cracked photo on the wall, an alien girl, different species, smiling. Why was it there? The silence felt heavy, not dangerous, but empty, like the ship hadn't heard laughter in a long time. She pulled the blanket tighter and closed her eyes. For the first time since the crash, she wasn't scared of dying, but she was scared of what came next. She was alive, that she was on a human ship, and she had no idea what that really meant. He returned the next morning, or what she guessed was morning. Time felt strange inside the ship. No windows, only humming lights. No sun to rise or fall, only the steady rhythm of the engines. Like a heartbeat to calm for someone who had just rescued a stranger. She pretended to be asleep as he entered. His boots were quiet, his movements careful. He placed a small tray beside her bed. On it was a warm bowl of protein broth, some dried food sticks, and a flask of clean water. Simple, functional, no words, no greetings. He didn't even glance at her before turning back and leaving the room again. This time, the door didn't lock. She opened one eye, then the other. Every part of her ached, but her strength had returned enough to sit up. The leg was still wrapped, stiff and painful, but functional. She picked up the bowl and drank. It was bland, but warm. She forced herself to finish every drop. She looked around the room again, this time more alert. The walls were bare, except for one panel and interface screen showing internal ship functions. But what caught her eye was the corner. A folded jacket lay across an old crate. On top of it, a weapon human design, sleek, deadly, scarred from use. She noticed other things now. Scorch marks near the air vent, a cracked medkit held together with wire, a locker door half opened, revealing dozens of tiny trinkets, beads, broken jewelry, worn pieces of alien cloth. All from different species. She limped to the locker and looked closer. One item made her pause, a small, red ribbon, torn, with writing in a language she recognized, her people's language. She held it up and stared. Why would a human have this? Before she could think more, the door opened. He stood there, silent, watching her. His eyes went to the ribbon in her hand, then back to her face. She didn't drop it. "Why do you have this?" she asked. He walked in slowly, no weapon in hand, no helmet. "Belonged to someone I tried to help," he said. Tried. Her stomach turned. She placed the ribbon back without a word. He didn't stop her. "You rescue aliens?" she asked, voice steady. "When I can," he replied. "Where are they now?" Silence stretched between them. The ship hummed. The lights flickered faintly. "Gone," he said. She didn't know what that meant. Dead. Left. Sold. She took a step back, suddenly aware of how close he was. Her mind screamed questions, but her mouth stayed shut. She needed answers, but also safety. She had no weapon, no place to run. "Why did you save me?" she asked finally. "You were alive," he said simply. "That's all." He looked at her, eyes tired but honest. "That's enough." She didn't know how to respond to that. He turned and walked toward the corridor, stopped, glanced back. "Bridge is 2 doors down," he said. "You want to see where we're going? You're free to look." Then he left again. This time, she followed, slowly, carefully, dragging her injured leg. The metal hallway was narrow, with faint scratches on the walls, signs of past battles, old wounds. She reached the bridge and stepped inside. It was quiet. Screens showed star maps, system scans, and one blinking. Her escape pod, marked behind them, fading in the distance. "Forgotten." He sat in the pilot's chair, one hand on the controls. Virea stood near the door, unsure if she should speak. He didn't look at her, but he spoke anyway. "You're the first survivor in 3 months." She stepped closer. "What happened to the others?" His jaw tightened. "Not everyone wants to be saved." She frowned. "What does that mean?" He finally turned to face her. "It means some lied. Some tried to take the ship. Some were already dying, and some just couldn't handle what they lost." She looked away and realized she could have been one of them. He stood up and walked past her toward the door. "Your kind still think humans are monsters?" he asked, pausing at the exit. She didn't answer right away. "We don't really think you exist," she said. He chuckled softly, first sound close to a smile she'd heard. "Well," he said, "I guess I'm the ghost you got." And then he left her alone again, on the bridge, staring at stars she didn't recognize, on a ship piloted by the one being her people thought was myth. She didn't trust him, not yet, but she didn't fear him either, and somehow that was scarier. The stars outside the bridge pulsed gently, like they were watching her. Virea stayed there long after the human left, seated in silence, listening to the soft hum of the ship's power core. It was strange, this warmth, this comment didn't feel like a rescue. It felt like a trap without chains. She didn't know this man's name. He never asked hers, yet he'd bandaged her wounds, fed her, carried her from death into life again, and then simply walked away like none of it mattered. She explored the ship slowly, careful to remember every corner. Her legs still ached, but she forced herself to walk. The human had said nothing about limits, no locked doors, no threats. She wasn't a prisoner, but she wasn't a guest either. Down a narrow hallway, she found a storage bay dark, cold, filled with broken crates and cables. One small container was open, with pieces of old alien tech inside. A cracked communicator blinked weakly. Burned datapads, fragments of survival suits. She knelt beside it and found something else, another ribbon. This one wasn't hers, it was blue, with white stitching in a language she didn't know. She picked it up, held it for a moment, then placed it back where she found it. All these items, were they trophies or memories? Suddenly, the ship shifted. The engines roared louder. Something had changed. She rushed back toward the bridge, half limping, her pulse racing. When she entered, he was already there, hands moving across the controls. He glanced at her. Storm front, need to go lower. He said, adjusting course, there's shelter near the ravine. Shelter? She asked, trying to catch her breath. He pointed at the screen. A cave, half buried under ice. Old mining site, abandoned like the rest of this planet. But we can wait out the storm there. And then, she asked. He didn't answer. The ship dipped low, and she grabbed the edge of the console to steady herself. The clouds outside turned dark. Lightning flashed in strange colors, blue and purple veins across the sky. This planet was no place for life. As the ship landed near the cave, dust and snow kicked up in all directions. The engines powered down. Silence fell again. He stood, grabbed a coat, and opened the rear hatch. She followed. Outside, the wind was cruel. It bit through her clothes like blades. The cave entrance was only a few steps away, its edges sharp like a broken mouth in the ice. He walked ahead, not looking back. She wrapped her arms around herself and limped after him. Inside the cave, it was warmer barely, but the wind didn't reach here. The walls glowed faintly with traces of old mining tech, long dead. He set down a small energy lamp, and its glow filled the space with soft yellow light. They sat in silence again. The only sound was the wind howling outside. Finally, she spoke. What's your name? He stared into the firelight of the lamp for a moment, then said, Jace. She nodded. Virea. Neither spoke again for a while, but then he surprised her. I didn't think you'd make it through the first night, he said, still staring at the flame. Neither did I. He shifted, pulled something from his jacket. A small vial, pale green inside. I gave you this, mixed it with what I had. Didn't know if it would work on your species. She took it, looked closely. It wasn't marked. Handmade, maybe, dangerous. Why risk it? He shrugged. I had it. You needed it. Her chest tightened. No one had ever said something like that to her without asking for something in return. What did the others do? She asked. The ones before me. He didn't lie. One stabbed me. One tried to steal the ship. One begged me to take her back to her home and then jumped out mid-flight. When I refused, her throat went dry. I'm not like them, I know, he said. She looked at him, really looked this time. His eyes weren't empty, they were tired. Like he'd carried the weight of too many lives and lost them all. I'm not broken, she said. Quietly, he turned his head. Met her gaze. No, you're not. They sat closer now, not by choice, but by instinct. The cave was cold, and the warmth of the lamp was small. Her shoulder touched his. Neither moved away. In that moment, something shifted, not in the cave, not in the air, but between them. For the first time, she didn't feel like a rescued creature or a damaged passenger. She felt seen. And Jace, maybe for the first time in a long while, wasn't alone. The air inside the cave had gone still, heavy with quiet thoughts and unspoken things. The lamp's glow painted soft gold across the frozen walls, and Virea found herself staring at Jace's side profile, sharp, scarred, unreadable. A man who didn't talk much but carried stories in every small movement. He hadn't moved since they'd leaned together. No shift, no glance. It was strange how safe she felt next to someone her people swore didn't exist. She closed her eyes briefly, letting her body relax. Her injured leg throbbed, but not as badly as before. Maybe the strange green medicine he gave her was still working. Maybe it was his presence that dulled the pain. Maybe both. Then the cave trembled. A deep groan echoed through the ground, low and distant. Not thunder. Something else. Jay stood instantly, grabbing a scanner from his belt. His movements were fluid, like muscle memory, fast, quiet, ready. Virea tensed, eyes wide. "What is it?" she whispered. He scanned the cave mouth. The screen blinked red for a moment, then static. "Something's out there," he said. She rose slowly, leaning on the wall. "Animal, maybe," he answered. "Maybe worse." Before she could ask what worse meant, the cave floor shook again, louder this time. A scraping sound followed metal on stone. Jace stepped in front of her. Virea wanted to be brave, but fear clawed up her throat. Not fear of death, she'd already danced with that, but fear of being dragged back into darkness. After feeling the warmth of life again, a shape appeared at the entrance. Tall, bulky, covered in frost and dust. Virea gasped. It wasn't an animal. It was a bot. An old mining drone, long abandoned. Its programming corrupted, its arm tools now jagged weapons. Its red sensor eyes scanned the cave interior. Twitching unnaturally. It spotted them and charged. Jace pushed Virea behind a stone pillar and pulled a compact plasma weapon from his hip. The drone's buzz filled the air. It smashed through the cave entrance, ignoring falling rocks, its drills spinning with deadly intent. He fired once. The bolt hit the side of its head, sparks flying, but the drone didn't stop. "Stay down," Jace barked, ducking to the side, drawing the drone away from her. Virea wanted to run, to hide, to scream, but she didn't. She crawled behind another stone wall and reached for a loose pipe lying in the dirt. It was rusted and heavy, useless for real combat, but maybe. Jace fired again, this time hitting one of the legs. The drone stumbled, adjusted, and rotated its drill arm toward him. The machine let out a mechanical shriek and launched forward. Again. He dove just in time, but the edge of the drill clipped his shoulder. His armor sparked. He hit the ground hard. Virea's heart stopped. The drone lifted its heavy arm again, ready to strike a second blow. Before it could, Virea swung the pipe with all her strength, slamming it against the joint in its rear leg. The drone jerked, sensors flickering. She hit it again, and again. Sparks flew from the cracked wiring. The drone turned toward her now, angry and fast, but Jace was back on his feet. This time, he didn't miss. He aimed straight into the exposed circuitry Virea had broken open and fired. The bolt pierced straight through. The drone let out a high-pitched screech, then fell, collapsing in a heap of smoke and broken metal. Silence. Only their heavy breaths filled the cave. Jace limped over, gripping his shoulder. Blood soaked part of his sleeve. Virea dropped the pipe, hands shaking. "You're hurt," she said. "I've had worse," he muttered, collapsing to sit against the wall. "You hit it hard." "You were about to die," she replied. He chuckled weakly. "That's what I get for trying to camp on an old mining world." She knelt beside him, helping pull back the damaged armor. Beneath, his shoulder was badly cut, but not deep enough to kill. Still, it needed care. She found the medkit, hands steady now, and began to clean the wound. Jace hissed through his teeth, but said nothing more. When she was done wrapping it, he looked at her closely. "You should have stayed hidden," he said. "I told you I'm not like the others," she replied. His eyes softened just slightly. "No," he said, "you're not." Virea sat beside him again. Her heart still raced, but not from fear, from something else. Adrenaline, maybe, or something warmer. She looked at the ruined drone, then at the blood on her hands. "I saved you," she whispered. "You did." They stared at each other. This time, neither looked away. Something had changed in that cave. Not just between them, but inside her. She wasn't a helpless noble anymore. And he wasn't just a wandering human. Now, there was something more, something neither of them fully understood yet. The next day, the storm passed, but neither of them spoke about the drone again. The broken machine still lay at the cave's entrance, like a warning, half buried in snow and ash. Virea watched it from the ship's viewport as they lifted off. Her thoughts tangled. She had saved him. That moment hadn't left her mind. But what haunted her more was how he'd looked at her afterward. Like she mattered. Back inside the ship, the silence returned. Not cold, not heavy, just there, floating between them. Jace sat at the controls, guiding them toward a safer region of the planet, a place marked with old satellite ruins. He said there might be fuel or supplies. but Virea could feel it. That wasn't the only reason. She had seen the wound in his eyes now, not just on his shoulder. He was searching for something, not parts, not survival. Something else. She found herself walking toward the back of the ship again, down the corridor past the sleeping quarters. The door she hadn't tried before was now unlocked. Inside was a workshop, dimly lit, cluttered, and full of strange things. Half-finished repairs, data cores, broken weapons. But what drew her attention wasn't the tools. It was the wall. A wall covered in faces, holograms, photos, some cracked, some faded, alien faces, dozens of them. All different species, some smiling, some young, some wearing uniforms or robes. All of them had names beneath. Some had dates. Some just said unknown. She stepped closer, heart slowing. There were notes written by hand next to some of them. She lasted 14 days. Tried to return home, never made it. Disappeared in the night. One name caught her breath. Ralen. Her cousin. She hadn't seen her in years. Everyone thought she died during an outer colony riot. But here she was, smiling in a faded holo, marked taken in, lost in transit. Virea backed away, hands trembling, footsteps behind her. Jay stood in the doorway. His eyes weren't surprised. He knew she'd find it eventually. "Why is her face here?" Virea demanded. He didn't answer right away. "I tried to save her," he said finally. Virea shook her head. "She was royalty." "How did you even find her?" "Same way I found you. An escape pod. Half broken, forgotten by her people." Virea looked back at the wall. "So many. You failed," she whispered. "Yes," he said quietly. "Most of the time, I do." She turned to him. "Then why keep doing this?" He looked tired. "Because if I stop, they all die alone." She didn't know what to say. Her heart hurt, not with anger but with something heavier. Guilt, realization. He had tried, over and over. And still, he built this wall, like a graveyard inside his ship, so no one would forget them. "You shouldn't have brought me here," she said, voice cracking. "No," he replied. "But I did." She sat on the edge of the bench, her breath shaky. The room felt smaller now. "Am I just another face for your wall?" she asked. His eyes met hers, steady, honest. "No." "Then what am I?" He stepped closer, not threatening, not soft either. "You're the first one who fought back, not just to live but to protect." Virea couldn't look away. "You want to help others," she said. "I can't do it alone." Silence again. Only now, it was filled with meaning. He turned and walked back into the hall, but this time he left the door open. Virea looked at the wall one last time, then stood and followed him, back on the bridge. He pointed at the map again. There were more signals, faint, possibly more survivors, possibly more pods like hers. "You still think you're weak?" he asked without turning. Virea stared at the blinking dots. "No," she said. "Good." Jace sat down, cracked his knuckles, and began setting coordinates. Virea sat beside him. She wasn't royalty anymore. She was something else now. Someone new. And when he looked at her this time, she understood. They weren't heading towards safety. They were heading into danger, together. The ship sliced through clouds like a knife, the hull groaning softly as if it knew what lay ahead. Virea sat in the co-pilot's seat, eyes fixed on the screen in front of her. The signal they were tracking had grown stronger, steadier. It was another escape pod, buried in the dense forest of a long-dead terraforming zone. No atmosphere processing left, just ash, acid fog, and silence. Jace adjusted the flight path with one hand, the other resting loosely on the edge of the console. His movements were calm, but Virea could feel that he was tense, focused, ready. She was too. Only days ago, she'd been trapped and broken. Now she was preparing to pull someone else out of the same hell. She tightened the strap of the borrowed armor Jace had given her. It didn't quite fit, but it made her feel stronger, safer, not just a survivor, now something more. As the ship descended, the ground came into view. Cracked soil, dying trees, a metallic object half sunk in the mud. Another pod. They landed a short distance away. Jace didn't wait. He grabbed his gear and moved fast. Virea followed, blaster in hand, her injured leg wrapped and firm. No pain stopped her now. Not today. They reached the pod within minutes. Its door was jammed. Burn marks all around it. Jace crouched, scanning, life form still inside. He said, barely. He pulled out a tool and began working the door open. Sparks flew. The metal groaned. Virea covered the area, watching the shadows. Her heart beat harder than she expected. The door cracked open with a sharp hiss inside. Curled into a ball was a young alien girl smaller than Virea, skin pale, and slick with frost. Her eyes opened weakly, glowing faint yellow. She whispered something. Jace leaned in and lifted her carefully. She's stable, but cold, weak. Virea reached forward, took off her coat, and wrapped it around the girl. She met Jace's eyes. Let's get her back. They ran. No one chased them. But the urgency in the air felt alive. Back inside the ship, Jace moved quickly, setting the girl down in the medbay. Virea activated the warming pads, checked the vitals, and fed instructions into the medical AI. Her hands were steady. The ship lifted again, rising into the clouds. Jace came beside her, watching as the girl's temperature rose. She'll make it, Virea said. He nodded. And then she asked the question that had lived in her chest since the wall of faces. What if we can't save them all? He didn't flinch. We'd try anyway. She stared at him. Why do you believe so much? His answer came without hesitation. Because if we don't, no one else will. The room went quiet again. The girl stirred. Her hand reached out. Virea took it gently. For a moment, it was like looking at her own reflection days ago, lost, frozen, afraid. But now, she was on the other side. She wasn't the one begging for help anymore. She was the one giving it. Jace handed her a datapad. On it were more. Signals weak beacons scattered across nearby systems. Dozens of escape pods still out there. Forgotten lives. We can't reach them all, she said again. No, he replied. But we'll reach the next one. Virea exhaled slowly, then nodded. Something had changed in her and it wouldn't change back. She stood tall now, armor fitting better, heart stronger. When she looked at Jace, it wasn't with fear or gratitude. It was with purpose. Together, they weren't just rescuers. They were hope. And as the stars opened before them again, their ship vanished into the dark, leaving behind a dead world and heading toward the next. SIGNAL one light at a time.